Well, a very warm welcome into this episode of the HuddleUK podcast. We're moving on to episode number 26 today. We're joined by another guest. I feel like every week I'm trying to avoid the fact that I've got on another Welsh guest. I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise. We probably should have just met up in person this one because we're only a few miles apart down the road. But joining the huddle today is Andy Davies. You'll probably know him from over on most social medias at Andy Davies Sport on X. I'll let you give all the other plugs, but Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Good to be on the show. Thank you for having me on. Just about recovered from Dublin. As looking forward to the rest of the international slate. But all good. Just glad that we've got NFL in 29, 30 hours now.
Very, very close. Yeah, it's been great that the season started. We're a full month in now. We're recording this on the 1st of October. It's such a long off season, isn't it, with this sport? You grew up in Wales. You probably grew up a fan of rugby or the football over here, and by the time that season finishes in May, it feels like it's back on you at the end of July. With the NFL, it is really hard that off season, isn't it? It grinds.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it does also sometimes weirdly fly by. I feel like it feels, I don't know, the gap between the Super Bowl and the draft feels longer than the gap between the draft and the start of the season. I don't know whether it's because the draft happens, then after a couple of months you've got the off-season stuff, like the practice, training camp even, and and I don't know, it sounds weird because it is obviously on paper a longer period, but it just seems quicker. I don't know, I think when the draft ends, I feel like then, I think out of nowhere, it's, the summer's here, NFL's here, preseason's on, season started. See, I don't know why that is. Maybe it's it makes even more lack of sense because I follow football and that's on till May. Do you think that would distract me from the NFL off season? But gets to like June, July when it's normally a quieter time, excluding major tournaments and football, and it somehow seems shorter than maybe a couple of months after the Super Bowl.
Has your body clock adjusted yet? Because I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm a prime time fiend. If there's a game on a Monday, Thursday, or a Sunday, I'm staying up at least till halftime. Like at the minimum at halftime. Even if there's work the next day, I sort of punish myself with the early start. Some days I, delighted, like the Bills Ravens game, great, and then other times we had that Vikings Falcons game a few weeks ago, disaster. Actually, that's a good segue into the first part of this because you're a Dolphins fan, aren't you?
Yes.
Did you stay up to watch that game against the Jets on Monday?
I did, but in not the most conventional way. Now, you mentioned there that you're a primetime feed. I can't do late nights. I'm finding, I've turned 30 now, and I'm finding even now, I'm finding it hard to stay up past 10 p.m. on Red Zone. I'm not a night owl at all. So my primetime games are basically, because I don't drive as well, that's a long story in itself. Basically, it's a fear of driving, basically. But because I don't drive, I get the bus to work. It's like an hour on the bus, 50 minutes. So what I tend to do, I'll watch it on ad-free replay the next morning. I'll watch the first half, on Game Pass on the Zone. I'll watch that on the way to work, and then I've got a 4-hour wait. And then second half, I'll watch that at my lunch break, essentially around about 12:30. But sometimes if I'm up early enough, I will watch enough for the first half. If I get up early enough, like 5:30, 6-ish in the morning, I can watch the first half before I even leave the house at work, and then the second half on the way to work. And that's how I did it on Monday Night Football with the Jets Dolphins. I did end up watching, got up about 5:30, 5:45, watched the first half on ad-free replay, got on the bus and watched the second half. And it was, not kind of what I was expecting, but at the same time, I've gotten so used to losing games, it felt weird actually seeing us win.
Yeah, I mean, the first win of the season for the Dolphins, it came at a cost, didn't it? It feels a bit like the Giants won on the weekend. That was great for them, and then they lost Malik Neighbours. Same thing really has happened for you guys, but losing Tyreek Hill, he's not quite been on the same wavelength. It's not been the Tyreek Hill into a combination that we saw right at the start when he joined, but this loss is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, if you won that game, no injury for Tyreek Hill, that maybe that thing in your back of your mind saying, okay, you never know. We've seen teams go 0-3, make the playoffs. I think the Colts did it with Andrew Luck in 2018, 2019, whatever it was. But I think losing him, even though, exactly what you said, even though he's not at the peak of his powers, I think we all know he has declined a little bit. But you think about the week 3 game against Buffalo Bills, he scored a touchdown in that game. made some plays here and there. Um, I think obviously it'd been way more heartbreaking if that was in 2023 or 2022. I think that would have been literally the end of the world as Dolphins fan, because he is probably the best player I've seen in my 14 years being a fan of the team. But at the same time, you know, I think this could be a chance to see Waddle really, up his game. But then apart from him, unless you just constantly rinse the screen pass plays to A Chain, I don't know who else he can throw to. I mean, been nice plays here and there from players. Malik Washington, Darren Waller got a couple of touchdowns in the red zone on that game. So there's players there, but definitely a big miss. And even if he is not the player he once was, he's still a better product than some of the players I've seen play for the Dolphins in the last 5, 10 years.
It was slightly more positive though. That the one play, I'm not sure if you've seen it. Well, you would have seen it when you watched it back, but if you're listening to this, it's worth a watch. But Tua basically plays a shovel pass behind his back, no look. That was the first play of the game, or the first time this season that I've seen the Dolphins. I was like, this is the Miami Dolphins that we've become used to. A bit of trickery, a bit of Mike McDaniel magic. I mean, I said a couple podcasts ago that I was questioning whether he was a bit of a fraud, and had a few people in the group chat saying, is he washed as a head coach? He's come out with some bizarre comments this season as a head coach. But did you enjoy that as a Dolphins fan? He must have, given you some enjoyment this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've had not much enjoyment this season. We gave a good account ourselves in both the losses to the Bills and the Patriots. And yeah, it was good to see a win. I do feel like, we were a bit lucky that the Jets did seem to shoot themselves in the foot in this game. A lot of penalties. And obviously, Fields made some poor decisions in this game. But you can't complain. It's a win, and you got the Panthers next. You got a chance to go 2-3. You got the Browns in a few weeks after that, who, albeit scary on defense, aren't that great on offense. So I think there's a chance there to go, 3-4, maybe at a stretch 4-3. I think we're playing your Chargers in this next few games as well. So, there's a chance there, especially with we mentioned off camera, but you got 2 offensive linemen injured, so you never know. If you start the season 3-3, 4-3, 3-4, it gives you that hope that you could get a late run going. But I think that's where what we have to look towards. I think people were saying we're going to have the number 1 overall pick. I think that was absolutely absurd. I think even in the losses we've had, if you take away the Colts games, this week 2 and week 3, they were coaching performances, especially on offense. I think the defense is still a problem. Allowed the Jets back into that game on Monday night as well. Of course, allowed a lot of points to the Colts, to Patriots, to Bills. So, yeah, offensive wise, I think it's been better than we thought it'd be after week 1, but still a lot of holes. I'm not expecting any sort of playoff run, if I'm honest. I think a 6-7 win season is probably where it's at this year. I don't believe, and that's probably been generous at times, because we got play the Bills still. We got to play the Patriots in Foxborough. Still some hard games to have. So yeah, it's good to get a win, but I'm not going to get, I don't think, carried away with this performance. It's against a poor team, a team that even I've seen people saying on Twitter, Aaron Glenn isn't exempt from being fired in his first season. It's been that bad. So I'm not going to get too hyped over winning against a poor team. But same time, win's a win. It's better than losing, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much better than losing. The other Monday night game away from the Dolphins Jets, I mean, Jets fans are rightly right now that that whole JETS, just end the season, is already a mantra that's coming back after 4 weeks. But I think even though this is a team that have got wins on the board, being a Cincinnati Bengals fan right now is tough. This was a season where I said plenty of times in the offseason, it's the team I'm most excited to watch this season, because they're not going to be great on defense, but at least on offense, they're going to be, fire. And in that first drive against the Broncos on Monday night, they went some 11 plays down the field, kicked a field goal, and it was like, okay, there's a bit of something here. And then from that point forward, I think they had about 3 first downs in the game, lost 28-3. Jake Browning has not stepped up at all. Nobody expected him to be Joe Burrow. That would have been a ludicrous suggestion, but he's not been able to even get the Bengals ticking. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, if you're the owner of them in fantasy leagues, you must be pulling your hair out. Have you seen that clip on social media where there's 6 trying to stop 3 Broncos pass rushers? and four of them go for one guy, and then the other two lose their matchup. I mean, if you're a Bengals fan, you must be pulling out your hair right now. I guess, is there any hope for them? Do you see any hope for Bengals moving forward this season unless they get Burrow back soon?
Not with Browning. I think they're the likes of Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. Now, these aren't guys that are going to win you Super Bowl. I don't think either of them are the players they once were. Even Cousins in his prime wasn't winning you a Super Bowl, but I feel like they're experienced pros. I thought Browning would do better because he knows the offense, he knows the playbook, but from what I've seen the first 2 weeks, has been absolutely appalling. I think if he's playing there all season long, I don't think they win many games. Now, of course, they had this issue in 2020. They got Jamar Chase as a result, made the Super Bowl. So sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world to have if you're not going to make the playoffs or the Super Bowl. If you can get a high draft pick and they get like a star player on defense or a star player on offensive line, then it's worth it in the long run. But yeah, I think there's hope in terms of they got that 2-0 start, so that gives them a little bit of a cushion. So there's still a chance. If they can just get a couple of wins together now, then the season's not lost. But if they lose the next 2 games or next 3 games, that is the season done. And even if they can just get to 5-5, 6-6 when Burrow comes back from injury, they got a chance. They've got a chance, but they just need to just try and win some games and try and just stay at that 500 sort of mark. Whether that is sticking with Browning, whether it's getting Wilson or getting Cousins, who knows? But I think if Browning's playing that bad again in the next game, they have to look at someone in the trade market, whether it's James Winston or maybe it's someone, I dare say Zach Wilson, but someone who's an experienced pro, like Wilson or Winston, like Kirk Cousins. I think that's the way you have to go. Just trying to get other experienced vets that could come in. I mean, if Gabriel has a good couple of weeks, you could trade Flacco to the Bengals. Whether they trade to division rival, I don't know. But yeah, I think there's always a chance because of that 2-0 start. A team that has over the years started badly with Burrow there. They finally get the 2-0 start and then this happens. So for me, yeah, I think if they can just win the next game or win the next 2 games, then they'll be absolutely fine. But I think there's huge problems if they start 2-4.
I mean, this is a crazy thing to be saying, but are the Pittsburgh Steelers the favourites? Not in terms of odds in Vegas. I imagine the Ravens, even though they're 1-3, would still be the favourites to win this division. But the Steelers must fancy their chances. They must be sitting there quite quietly going, the Browns have offered nothing on offense. Defense seems to be very good. The Bengals can't seem to string more than a couple first downs together. And the Ravens are 1-3. As you say, they've been a bit hit and miss, but Rodgers is healthy. He doesn't look awful. DK Metcalf's putting in some good performances. They've just won their international game. So, I mean, there's got to be some optimism there that this, always 9-8 team could maybe steal the division this year.
I think there's absolutely room to be optimistic if you're a Steelers fan. I mean, yeah, Rodgers isn't the quarterback he once was, but he's still putting in solid performances. I mean, the performance against the Vikings, I thought, it was really well sort of schemed from coaching point of view. I mean, they managed to avoid the blitz from Brian Flores. A lot of short plays, a lot of screen passes, extending plays. So I think the Steelers were really impressive in that game. And I think there's definitely a chance, exactly what you're saying. I mean, the Ravens have got the Rams coming up. They've got, the Vikings defense again. The schedule is favorable for the Ravens. They got the Bears, the Dolphins, the Texans with that bad O line, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals again, the Steelers. So there's a favorable schedule for this Ravens team, but I think you got Lamar Jackson out. If you can just if he's out for a month and they got Cooper Rush playing, and they've already got problems on defense anyway and got a lot of injuries. Mata BK as well, recently injured. If the Steelers can go the next month and they can win the next 3 of the next 4 games, and the Ravens do struggle without Lamar Jackson, I think it's definitely up for the taking. I really do, because yeah, it is one where they have been efficient. Keanu Benton on Sunday was fantastic, and I thought the Steelers' defense was really good against the Vikings. So I think, yeah, if they can just do that and keep what they're doing and keep it going, they got every chance of winning the AFC North.
Yeah, you touched on it there. Lamar Jackson potentially out for 2 or 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. So it's Cooper Rush time. I know this is a silly comment because I feel like every single year in the NFL, but the injuries this year, I could never quite remember the season before when it gets to it. And then each week it's like another star player out for weeks. Burrow's down. Today we've had Trey Benson go on IR. The week after, if you're a Cardinals fan, that James Conner's gone down. So we're back to the whole Michael Carter, DeMarcato backfield for the Cardinals. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill. The list goes on and on. It's a horrible sport, isn't it? I know we have injuries when we watch soccer football over here, but it never feels like you miss so many star players in a season.
It is that. It's that. I think when you're an NFL fan with how every game matters, short season in terms of 18 weeks, 17 weeks in the season, it really is that constant fear of your player could go down. You think about what the season holds. Like if the Bills lose Josh Allen, that's their season done. If the Packers lose some of the stars on defense, you think about the Lions losing Jameer Gibbs or St. Brown, or you think about the Chiefs losing Patrick Mahomes. That's their season done. Any player can get injured at any time. It's the beauty of sport, and whatever sport it is, injury can happen at any time, and it's just that you just never know in the NFL who's going to be making it the full season. I remember there was a couple of years ago where a lot of quarterbacks got injured. I think it was 2023, and ironically, two was the only one that stayed healthy, or one of the only ones that stayed healthy. This sport is just brutal. I definitely agree with you. I definitely think there's more injuries than there has been in the past. I don't know whether it's just recency bias, but you think about already. I mean, Nick Bosa, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson out for a month, Tyreek Hill, we just mentioned him then, and that's just, so many injuries, and makes you sort of sit there in awe of some players who do avoid injuries. I mean, Josh Allen, the way he does like to take a hit, how he's not got injured and the way the sport is always baffling to me. It just shows how he takes care of his body. Russell Wilson never really got injured with Seattle, apart from towards the end. So it's just it is brutal. It's a brutal sport, and I always say that I love watching it, but there's absolutely no way I would play it unless I'm a kicker or a punter, particularly a kicker.
Yeah, that sounds like that would be my place as well. Although at 6'4", I feel like that wouldn't be my physical skill set. But I wouldn't want to be anything involved in offensive line. None of that. No, thank you. No, hard pass on that. And I feel like on this podcast we jinxed it because you mentioned there about players who go through their careers without getting many injuries. We had Austin Eckler on in the summer, and I said to him, you've done so well to avoid injuries in your career. How have you done it? And he was preaching, the weight room and, his advice. And then 3 weeks into this season, or in fact, maybe 2 out for the year. And I was just like, I'm not going to ask any players ever again how they avoid injuries because it feels like a curse. So good luck to every player moving forward.
Basically, if you're a Commanders fan, listen to this podcast. It's this guy's fault. It's this podcast's fault. I took it down. You can blame this podcast.
Yeah, the HuddleUK podcast screwed over the Washington Commanders backfield this year. Although, hey, if you're a Commanders fan, you might be pleased. You might, it's the time of Bill Krosky Merritt, or Jacory as he's actually called. But I love Bill. I've said it before. I love someone going by the nickname Bill. Moving on from last week, let's move on to this week. We're talking on, I was about to say Tuesday, but of course it's Wednesday. Thursday night football is a big one. The NFC West has got 3-3-1 teams. Surprisingly to me, I could be wrong, but for me, this wasn't going to be one of the more competitive divisions, but it certainly has started that way. And Thursday night, we've got the 49ers against the Rams. This should be a cracking game. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I know I mentioned to you just before we started recording that the 49ers were in the headlines this weekend. Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator in particular, having a bit of a spat with Liam Cohen, the Jags head coach. It feels like it was just a misunderstanding of words. Saleh said that, that Cohen and all of the Sean McVay coaching tree have been using advanced signal stealing. Cohen didn't like that, wanted to add some words at the end of the game. But that's in the past. It sounds like in the press conference this week, Saleh sort of put it to bed. But what I love is one of the reporters, when they spoke to Kyle Shanahan to try and clear the air, they were having a bit of a joke. And then one of them just asked Kyle Shanahan, which head coaches and defensive coordinators in the NFL do you think could actually beat Robert Saleh in a fight? And that got me thinking, because Kyle Shanahan said he could. I'm not so sure about that. I think I would give Robert Saleh the edge in that fight. Who would be your tag team partner if you're looking for a coach across the NFL, someone to back you up in the ring. I mean, Dan Campbell's got to be up there. That's a dude who is going to motivate you all the way. Do you have sort of a Mount Rushmore of coaches that you'd like to be on your side in a scrap?
Well, my first thought was Dan Campbell as well. I mean, I would not want to be up against him in any sort of fight. Um, Now, I would have said Mike Tomlin, but I think at his age, he'd probably retire easily. So I'm ruling out. I think Tomlin's got the fear factor. He's got that look in his eyes that you don't want to mess with him. But maybe if he was 10 years younger, I maybe would back him a bit more. Um, I would back Pete Carroll on a one-off because he's got the energy of a 40-year-old. You know, he's like what 73, whatever. He's over 70. I think Pete Carroll could back himself, but I think the size he's at, if you put him up against Dan Campbell, he's got no chance. From what I saw from Ben Johnson in that sideline interview on the game on the weekend, I would definitely back him to what's the word, to conduct himself in the right way and cause a problem. I mean, Andy Reid for his size, I mean, he could probably cause some damage. I think Stefanski probably could do quite well. I think McVay for his physique, for the guy's age, he'd probably be someone I would look
Yeah,
more.
he'd outlast you in a fight, wouldn't he? Yeah, feel like the young age, strength. Yeah, that's a good shout. I like that one.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, I think Campbell's the outstanding candidate. I'm probably missing someone completely obvious as to who you could be in a fight. But I can't think. I mean, Sean McDermott, no. Mike McDaniel, no. Aaron Glenn,
No,
10
not
years
mine.
younger, maybe,
No,
but not him. I mean, you've
I
got,
reckon Brian Dable would throw his weight
yeah,
around. I reckon.
Brian Dable, yeah.
I,
I mean, Kevin O'Connell, no. I think he's too slim to back in a fight. Says so. I mean, I'm saying as someone who myself is only 11 stones, I definitely wouldn't beat these guys in a fight. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I mean, maybe Dan Quinn could be quite useful.
oh yeah,
Um,
Todd
you know,
Bowles perhaps as well. He's
Todd
got a bit
Bowles,
of a
yeah.
stare to
Mm,
him. Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't want to stare down Todd Bowles. I feel like he's got a mean side.
yeah, yeah. But I think it is Dan Campbell. I think he is. If you're saying your opening press conference is in your first proper job as a head coach, that you're going to bite people's kneecaps off. Whenever I'm seeing him celebrating after team wins in the locker room, in the footage you see on social media, it always feels like the room's shaking as he's moving around. So yeah, Dan Campbell for me is the guy I would immediately turn to back me up in a fight.
Maybe get Bill Belichick out of college, serial winner. Maybe not the best fighter, but I feel like he'd game plan. He'd game plan well. Anyway, away from the ring and back on the field. This is a great game on paper. I'm really excited for this one. 49ers Rams. You'll enjoy this on the bus on Friday morning. I'll see if I can survive the whole of it on Thursday night. I'm not sure who you see winning it, but I guess the question I want to ask you for this game really is looking at it is about Puka Nacua. Because this is a debate I was having with some friends this week. I made the question, or I posited the question, is Puka Nacua the best wide receiver in football right now? I think probably yes. They would say that Matthew Stafford would still prefer to have a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, but it's hard to argue with the numbers he's putting up.
I think Puka Nacua, he's been the best receiver this season. I still think over the last few years, I think I've seen more sample size from Jefferson and Chase, and I think they are the best two in my opinion. But I think he's certainly if you think about a top five conversation, I think he's absolutely in that conversation. I think for me, CD Lamb is in that chat. AJ Brown on his day, although this season not as much. So I think certainly he could be in that top five conversation, and I think certainly he'll be a key factor in this game. I think I'm loving the Devontae Adams move. I think he's been a great sort of second choice for them, and I think he's not number one anymore, but I think as number two, he can cause some problems. A bit like OBJ when he was at the Rams a few years ago as third choice, and then second choice when Woods went down. And in the Super Bowl, he was, I think, going to win MVP before the injury.
I can't believe you named the top 5 wide receivers in football and didn't name Quentin Johnston.
Oh, he's
Wide receiver
good.
4 in
He's been great.
fantasy this year. Where did that come
Mm.
from? Even as a Chargers fan, it week by week, I'm still benching him in all my fantasy leagues. I'm like, it's going to end. It's going to end. It can't keep going on. And not only is it going on, it's actually getting better.
Mm.
He's going up in receptions and yards per game. So, yeah, moving on. I don't know. I'm speechless about what's happening there. Lad McConkey 1 catch on Sunday compared to Quentin Johnston's 13 targets. Who saw that coming?
That is so weird. I mean, McConkey was so good last year. Johnson was also good last year, but McConkey's just been completely underwhelming. But Johnson is just, I think he's living proof that don't write a player off after their first year, which hopefully is a positive message for Florian Wirtz if you are listening to this podcast. But no, I think Quentin Johnson has proved everyone, if you have a bad first year, don't let it sort of get you down. Don't let it, affect your career. You just, ever since that first year and sort of the start of the second half of that season, and since that point and going on to this season, he's just been fantastic. Made a brilliant catch in week one against the Chiefs, and I've been really impressed with him in this season so far.
Yeah, I've held off on my Bayern Lad McConkey jersey for this year just in case it is QJ, which is the direction I need to go. Anyway, I do this every week. I end up steering into Chargers when I'm not meant to. You mentioned right at the start you came back from Dublin. Let's get on to the international series. This is the Huddle UK podcast, after all. Vikings Steelers was in Dublin. You were out there. Steelers got the win. That surprised me. I thought the Vikings were just going to edge it, but fair play to Aaron Rodgers and co. And the Vikings now, this week, become the first team to play back-to-back international games in different cities. They're in London against the Browns. And the big talking point ahead of this game is the Browns, who have benched Joe Flacco this week. Dylan Gabriel will get the start, his first start as a rookie. He did play a few snaps in week 2. I think he actually threw a touchdown in that game as well. But his first start, you're going to the game?
I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there.
The Browns are an interesting team, aren't they? Because they upset the Packers. They're kind of like the reverse of what everyone thought the Bengals would be. Very, very good on defense and limited on offense. But Quinton Judkins looks like the second coming of Nick Chubb. Just a big bruising running back. Dylan Gabriel, there's a bit like Jackson Dart was for the Giants this weekend. Whenever there's a new rookie quarterback gets his first start, there's a bit of excitement. There's a bit more unpredictability when you're trying to plan the defense to stop this quarterback. So how do you see this game going? And even on paper, these aren't two great teams. It's a game that hopefully the London crowd will be up for.
I think this will be a defensive shootout. I don't think I can trust either Wentz or Gabriel. And I do think Gabriel will have that new rookie bounce, like you mentioned, Dart did. And I think I would trust him more than Wentz right now, which sounds crazy because Wentz has played in the league for many years, was an MVP candidate a few years ago. But from what I saw, in that game against the Steelers, it was just really poor, and they got the win against the Bengals. When your defense is getting you the ball back every other play, it's so much easier to perform well. And I just don't see. I can see the Vikings team, punishing the Browns at times, but also I think this Brown defense is so good. I think it's going to really trouble Carson Wentz in this game. It's top defense in the league for a reason, and I think certainly was before the game against the Lions. It was top in passing yards allowed, and it's a really good defense. And I think that they'll probably want to watch the Steelers game and sort of see that's how you get to Wentz. And I do think the Browns could actually shock people and win this game. I do believe that it's that defense. I think both teams have amazing defenses. I mean, Isaiah Rodgers has been on a tear this year. He's been so good. So I think that's going to be. I think it's literally going to be Myles Garrett versus Isaiah Rodgers, or that Brian Flores defense. I think it's going to be both offenses maybe struggle, but defense, whoever comes out the strongest defense in this game is going to win the game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Probably not a great game for for newbies getting into the sport, or those who are attending who are neutrals. But I think this one could be something like 13-10, where maybe you get a defensive touchdown or a pick six or something like that. I just don't have any faith. I mean, of course, Wentz still made plays to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and they got both, I believe, over 100 yards each in that game against the Steelers. So the Vikings have the better team on offense, but I just don't trust Carson Wentz. That's simple as that. If it was JJ McCarthy or if we had Sam Darnold last year, I'd be saying Vikings all the way. But I think from what I've seen from Wentz, I was really disappointed with how he played after what was a good performance against the Bengals. So, yeah, I think the Browns do this. I think Myles Garrett will be the star of the game. I think he'll be the stand-up player in this game. I think he'll make some great plays, and I think that'll be a difference.
Yeah, I mean, well, I agree with everything you said. It doesn't sound like the best advert, does it? It's a game for the purists, this one. I've watched the NFL for years now. I love a good defensive masterclass, but if you're going to the NFL for your first game, try and get tickets to the Rams Jags game. That might be a bit more entertaining. That one, a bit of a shootout. And yeah, I think the Browns. I fancy the Browns in this. Well, the Vikings have played 4 games in London and won them all. This is the first ever time we've got a replay of a game in London. The last time was at Twickenham many moons ago. The Vikings won 33-16. So history is on Minnesota's side. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't trust Carson Wentz. I think that defensive front for the Browns is very good. And a player I mentioned last week, Carson Sweshinger, the rookie linebacker, looks excellent. So good luck to Carson Wentz. Good luck to the Vikings and the Browns. And if you're going and you're listening to this, have a great time in London. It should be brilliant. Just quickly to revert to last week, how was your experience out in Dublin for the first game out in Ireland?
Amazing. It was really good. It was kind of, I've been to all the stadiums in America, and I felt like it's the nearest thing I've experienced that is almost like you're watching it in their own city. So, like, I think Buffalo Bills, when they came to London 2023, that felt like you were at a Bills game. I wasn't there for it, but apparently the Packers game was something similar in 2022. But when I was there watching the game in the stands, in the press box, it just felt like I was watching a game in Pittsburgh. Stadium felt very similar. There's a little open bit of the stadium in Quote Park where you can see into the city, like it is in Pittsburgh and many stadiums in America. But amazing experience. The game was really good as well. I thought both teams at times tried to lose it. There was, Steelers just allowed Addison to be free, and just I don't know why they didn't go, why they went for that sort of a blitz package. They should have just kept everyone back. I don't know how, but and then the Vikings had penalty after penalty on their final drive. So I think it was a great game to watch. I think great advert for for newbies trying to get into the sport. It was a good advert for the sport. Obviously had the practice on Friday. Got to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers hotel. Got to watch them practice. Got to interview, ask questions to the likes of Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Hayward, and DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin. And fun story. I want to shout out Freddie Hall from the Franchise Tag podcast. Me and him were in the same Uber and the same train to the city centre as 2 Steelers players. Amazing thing to experience. We finished what we were doing. We packed up our tripods and our equipment, and then we were leaving the stadium, getting an Uber. And who am I seeing around me waiting for an Uber? I'm seeing Aaron Rodgers. I'm seeing Pat Frymuth. I'm seeing Jalen Ramsey walking by with a big bag of Uber Eats, and then 2 players in Miles Killebrew and Christian Coots asked us if they can get on our Uber. So they get on our Uber. We were then trying to get to the train station because where the hotel was nowhere near the centre. It's like a 40-minute train to get from where we were to like a 50-minute drive to get to the station, and then a 40-minute train on top of that. So quite a big distance to get from where this hotel was to Dublin itself, like the main like Temple Bar and all that part of Dublin. And so the traffic was that bad near the station. We thought, okay, we'll walk for the next 5 minutes. We'll walk to the station, save the driver waiting in traffic, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to the pub. Do you want to join us?" So we ended up going to the pub with these 2 players as well. I don't drink, but they all had a Guinness. I had an apple juice. Boring, I know. But I had a chat with them for like an hour in the pub, and then we got the train back, got a train with them, and then they eventually left to go and meet Ben Skoranek. So that was a really surreal 2 or 3 hours me and Freddie had, because, it was just, even though, if it was Aaron Rodgers or Metcalf, it'd be like, what the hell's going on? But still, to have 2 players who play for the team, who played on Sunday, literally with us, just having a chat and just, being with them as if they're your mates, was just a mad experience. I don't think I'll ever get that again. It was definitely a one-off experience.
That sounds amazing. That's great tales. Any good stories from them? I imagine that you were asking tons of questions over a Guinness or an apple juice in the pub. Do they have any sort of like good tidbits from the world of the NFL?
I asked them about their bye weeks, what they do. They tend to just rest their bodies and do not a lot in their bye weeks. I thought some people they can go on holiday. You could go and do this, but they said they just rest their bodies. They were worried about, or Christian was worried about the wind. Being a long snapper, he was worried about the wind because it was quite windy on Saturday. But because we actually passed the stadium on the train, we got like a really good view of it. And but yeah, not many gives away. I think they probably couldn't give away too much to 2 randomers. But they talked about Aaron being a really good teammate. they from from honest, my memory's gone fake. I don't remember anything too juicy, if I'm honest. We talked about golf for a while. Talked about sort of what there is to do in Dublin and about sort of British pub culture because we were in a real locals pub. It wasn't like a Temple Bar or a Brew Dog or even a Weatherspoons. It was a real local pub where everyone there has probably been there for 30 years. I mean, we spoke to a guy, he was 27, but he looked about 47. There was some interesting characters in the pub with us, but no, it was cool. They talked about as well just how taxing the season is on their body. I mean, from June 23rd until January or February, their bodies are just absolutely done in. So yeah, it was really interesting. It's kind of thing where do you ask them more questions? Don't want to, press them too much and alienate them from you. But certainly a really cool thing to do. And yeah, if any of the players ever want to come join us in the Uber and the pub trip, then they're more than welcome.
I mean, Ireland and Dublin particularly, one of the better cities. I love Dublin. I was there a few months ago with my fiance for a gig, and just going around the local pubs, as you say, Temple Bar's got its charm and its quirkiness, and would recommend going. But some of those pubs on the fringe of Dublin, where, as you say, everyone looks like they haven't left for 30 years, are excellent. Proper good gaffs. British pub culture, Irish pub culture, excellent. Something I think the Americans they come over here and they're like, wow, this is cool. Anyway, back to the actual football side of things. We're 4 weeks in, as I said, only two teams that are unbeaten at this point. That's the Eagles and the Bills, obviously the reigning Super Bowl champions. The Eagles-Bills is the current favourite matchup in the betting anyway to be the Super Bowl this year. The last couple episodes we've done power rankings. I'm curious who you think out of the two is the better team right now in football.
I think it's the Eagles. Now, I have my doubts whether they'll make it again. I kind of feel I still have this hunch that it'll be someone like, I don't know, like a Rams or like, a Packers or Lions that could make it in because I just feel like not many teams go back to back for a reason. And again, it just takes one injury to stop this. But I think right now they have been the best team. I think the Bills have been great, but I think at times their defense has let them down at times. I think they're one of the worst teams in the league in terms of either passing or rushing yards allowed. But I think the Bills, it feels more destiny for them. It feels like with this final season being a high mark with, I don't see them losing a game at all. I think maybe the one game will be against the Eagles at high mark, but I don't see them losing any games. It feels like destiny's on their side. So I think, but I still think that do not write off the Chiefs. I know they lost their first two games, but they only lost it by 6 points against the Chargers, not many points against the Eagles. And I thought they really impressed me against the against Ravens. Albeit the Ravens have their problems, but I think it's proved to me, with your boys losing, it's only one win gap now between them and you. Now, on paper, you thought, okay, the Ravens might beat the Chiefs, the Chargers might beat the Giants, or I think everyone thought they would. So that's a two game swing plus the tiebreaker over them from the Brazil game. But now you're looking at it, Chiefs only one win behind, and they've got to play the Chargers again, which could even the tiebreaker. I still think don't write off the Chiefs. They've made 7 straight AFC Championship games for a reason. I still think, Mahomes seems to make plays happen for whoever's he's thrown to. I mean, Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster, these aren't world beaters. These aren't even probably in the top 50 receivers in the league. But, he's making plays to all these players that no one really rates that highly, and they're not world beaters. And I think that's me. That's why they're so good, and that's why they've made all these games. Now, do I see him winning it? No, but I think certainly I can see him making that AFC Championship game and causing the Bills a problem. But I think on the NFC side, I think the Buccaneers could be a sneaky dark horse, but I think for me right now is how it's gone so far. I think the Eagles have been so far these first 4 weeks massively light years ahead of anyone else in the conference.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers are the NFC equivalent of the Chargers, where if they can get their offensive line fit and healthy, then they've got a good chance. But right now, it's a bit patchy. They played the Seahawks this week, and another one of those 3-1 teams in the NFC West, and a team that's gone massively up people's power rankings. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba has finally broken out. He was great last year, but he has proven he could be a wide receiver one. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I regularly say I'm going to buy a jersey of his, even though I don't support the Seahawks. I just really like the jerseys, and I think he's great. That's a really interesting matchup on the later slate on Sunday. Buccaneers, Seahawks, both 3-1. I'm just scrolling through the games here now. There's some of the other ones that I think are more exciting. I think the Lions, Bengals is going to be really tough for the Bengals. Commanders, Chargers will be good. Patriots are 2-2. That's the Monday, the Sunday night game, even against the 4-0 Bills. Mike Vrabel, he'd have been good in a fight. Mike
Oh,
Vrabel, I think.
that's who we're missing. Mike Vrabel was
Yeah.
the better choice than Dan Campbell, at least second choice.
Mike Vrabel v Dan Campbell might be the juggernaut, the heavyweight title fight there. I knew we were missing someone. Yeah, Mike Vrabel.
There's like a meme going around of The Rock and John Cena. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that's what Mike Vrabel and Dan Campbell would be if they had a fight in Vegas.
That's my Photoshop job for social media posts sorted once we finish recording this podcast. The greatest fight ever, Vrabel against Johnson. Which one of those games? I think that they've all got their interest in place. Lions Bengals. I'll start with that one. We've already touched on the Bengals. The Lions, after that first game against the Packers, there was a lot of question marks. They're now firmly in people's top 5 power rankings. Jared Goff looks good. Amon-Ra Brown is brilliant. Sonic and Knuckles look like they could run over anyone. I fear for the Bengals massively in this game. I think this could be another painful game for them. That NFC North division, we've talked about the AFC North, but the Lions, the Packers, I think the Vikings, what we've all said, aren't really going to be there or thereabouts, and the Bears have flashed moments, but this feels like a shootout between the Lions and the Packers, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I love the NFC North. It's my favorite division in the league. You got the history of the Bears and Soldier Field, Lambeau Field. You got the Lions and the Vikings, who have been exciting teams over the years. This is the division I love. But I think you're right. I think I hope that the Vikings could cause some problems in this division. But no, I think for me it is basically the Lions or the Packers. And I believe they play on Thanksgiving, if I'm right in saying that. So that's going to be one hell of a matchup. I think that could be a potential. I think that could be the game that could clinch someone, a second seed in the NFC, or even potentially even a 1 seed if something goes wrong in Philly. So it's a huge battle between those two teams. I think both teams have been really impressive. I think Love has concerned me at times this year. I don't think he has been maybe the quarterback that we saw from a couple of years ago. He's my one question mark about the Packers, where I think this Lions team, for me, there's not many flaws in this team. I mean, their defense had a poor display against the Packers, but apart from that, they seem to have not missed a trick from losing their two main coordinators in Dan Campbell, in Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. So for me, the Lions would be my pick to win the NFC, even with the tiebreaker so far being in Green Bay's favour. I just think that if you're struggling to get the ball to St. Brown or Williams, you can hand it off to Jameer Gibbs or Montgomery, or vice versa. Defensive wise, we saw problems last year. Injuries could happen again. I think Hutchinson had an injury scare against the Browns, but for me, it is one of those ones where there's not many flaws. But like the Eagles, there's not many flaws in this roster. I think Dan Campbell, as good as he is, I question so far his playoff CV. I think that's the one flaw in his so far his career, that he hasn't really done it much. He's won one playoff game as a Lions head coach. So that's my only concern, that he can get a bit too emotional or a bit too aggressive with the fourth down calls. But I think this game is huge. I think it's an amazing Thanksgiving prospect, these two teams playing later on in the season. And I think both teams have been very excited to watch. So I think, NFC North is definitely one that I always love keeping an eye on.
Yeah, Green Bay at Detroit, Kansas City at Dallas, and Cincinnati at Baltimore, the 3 Thanksgiving games this season. All of them have got their own charm and story to that one. Even the Chiefs, Cowboys. The Cowboys are a funny team, aren't they? I mean, even when disappointing and miserable, Sunday night they can still pull out a 40-40 tie against the Packers. Jerry Jones is a nutcase. I know we're getting towards the end of the podcast and everyone has said this, but he celebrated that, and the whole, I told you we didn't need Micah Parsons. But if they had Micah Parsons, they might have won that game. Or even if the Packers didn't, because Parsons stopped Jordan Love for what would have been a touchdown late in that game. And he still comes out of it saying he made the right decision. He absolutely baffles me as a human being.
I've said this before that as long as he's both the owner and the GM, the Cowboys will never win a Super Bowl. I think he can't be both. I don't think anyone can do both. And I think he's made too many decisions over the years. I mean, even when he first joined there, I mean, firing coaches that shouldn't have been fired. I just think that he should stick to being the owner, let someone else make football decisions. And I think for me, I mean, I'm not a coach, I'm not an owner, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I don't think he understands football properly in that sense. I think he understands it from a business point of view. I just don't think he understands football from a business side of things in terms of making football decisions like trades. And I just think that he's been a problem. He's the reason why they've not, made the NFC Championship game since 1995. I think he's a genuine reason why that's happened because he's hired poor coaches as well. I mean, Jason Garrett for 10 years, Mike McCarthy for way too long. So yeah, he seems to be loyal to the wrong guys as well. So for me, Jerry Jones, I think he's entertaining. I think he is. You can't deny that he is someone that he's not a boring man. He does. He is sometimes box office in that sense. But when it comes to these football decisions, like trading away Micah Parsons and you know other factors, the other things he's done in the past. I mean, for me, yeah, he is the problem in Dallas. But they have been surprisingly good. I think Prescott's been really good this year. Kenny Clark's been, I think, a forgotten man in his whole trade with Parsons. He's been impressive. Obviously, if they had CD Lamb fit, they might have won this game as well. I think him being injured is a big miss. But we've seen Pickens make some plays. We've seen likes of Tolbert and make some plays as well. So for me, the Cowboys aren't going to win a Super Bowl. They aren't going to make the playoffs probably, but I think they've been way better than advertised this year.
Yeah, I would and entertaining as well, which can't always been said about every team. We've put up our story today. I mentioned it in this podcast about just end the season with the Jets. I put up with our story that Daniel Tiller, a Jets writer, wrote reflecting on the Miami defeat, and someone has replied, "It's just end the season territory as soon as the regular season starts in New York. Wish we could just auto skip from September to February every year." That sums up the vibe, doesn't it? I mean, if you're franchise, if you're a fan and you're saying, "Let's skip the season part and I enjoy the off season more," that really that speaks volumes to me of how the Jets are. Just to finish on your team then, the Dolphins 1-3 Sunday in that 6 p.m. slate over here in the UK take on the also 1-3 Panthers. Panthers are a strange team. Another article that went up on the HuddleUK website this week from our Panthers writer, Keg Wilson, basically saying, who's to blame for this? Is this a Bryce Young issue? Is this a Dave Canales issue? Does it go higher? Is it general manager, owner? I mean, if the Dolphins are to salvage anything, this is a game that they have to be winning, isn't it?
Oh, it's so winnable. It really is winnable. And I feel like, for me, this is a game we have to win. If we lose this game, that spells trouble for me. But the Panthers, their record, I can't think of the team they beat now in week 3, but their record against that team compared to the rest of the league is,
Falcons.
but yeah, it's staggering difference. It's a real big difference. So I think the Panthers may have been. I thought they might do, get a 7-8 win season. I thought the way they ended the season last year, I thought they would have a decent season this year, but I think they've been really poor, really underwhelming. And I think this should be a win because I think that if you take away week 1, we really lost by a handful of points against the Patriots. We were until the end. We were very close to the Bills. So I think even if in our losses, we've kept scores close, and I think the offense we have, particularly A-Chain, I think A-Chain's been an amazing player for us this season. So I think he could be the guy that causes a difference. Waddle, I think keeping him healthy is key, and I do feel like what he's shown now. I think given the chance to be the #1 receiver, I have faith in him, living up to that. So yeah, I have faith in the win. It's the most confident I've been of a win since week 1. I thought we'd beat the Colts. Obviously, we didn't. But this is probably even more confident than that was for me.
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected Indiana Jones over over in Indianapolis. What a surprise that's been. Although Indianapolis did start showing a few of their flaws. We didn't mention AD Mitchell actually earlier. I know the Rams won on Sunday, but there's always one every season, is there? Someone who just decides to drop the ball before they get to the end zone. I know I'm not an NFL player, but it staggers me, particularly when it's the younger players. Malachi Corley did it for the Jets last year. When you're in your first and second year, you're trying to prove yourself and you have that opportunity and you make a great play. Just make sure you score first. Please. This goes to any player. Stop doing that. It's so, I mean, and I'm not even a Colts fan. It just infuriates me because, these are these guys' careers. If you're the coach now and you're Steichen and you're looking at AD Mitchell, are you going to trust him? I don't know. He's just a fashion. Anyway, that's a very small rant. Andy, before we go, I'd like to get guests 2 words. Obviously, I'm looking for 2 franchise names. Who your very, very early at this stage
Or
Super Bowl matchup prediction is?
that's tough. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna go for the Rams. I just feel like if that kind of like Peyton Manning's final season with the Broncos, it just feels like this is Stafford's potential last dance. And I feel like the way their team's so young and they got a lot of good players on rookie contracts, this feels like their chance now. And they came close to beating the Eagles. Well, they should have beaten the Eagles in week 3. So I think they definitely know they can keep up with the Eagles now. I think the Rams, for me, I can just see they're making the Super Bowl. Stafford rising off to the sunset if he wins, but if he doesn't, then he still may have 1 year left in him. I think the Rams, I think they are impressive for me in many ways. And then on AFC,
This is where you don't want to say Buffalo because if Buffalo play the Chiefs in the playoffs, that history just wants to tell you that Kansas City win, don't they?
well, this is it. This is why I'm torn between the Bills and the Chiefs. I think the Ravens, they're not. I think they've got too many injuries, too many problems on defense. I think the Bengals, if Burrow stayed healthy, they could have been one of those teams that wins games 41-38 every week with that offense. But it is me, the Bills or the Chiefs. And I think it depends who's at home. I think if it's in Buffalo, which would be the final ever game at that stage, I would back Buffalo, the fans, to get them over the edge. But I think if the Chiefs find a way to get home advantage in that game, I would back them. So I'm going to stick with the Bills. I feel like it's their destiny to make it. And I think they play the Rams. All the Lions, I'll go for the Rams.
You've done well.
It's
You've done well with this to 2 words.
yeah.
It's either these, might be these, it could be these. I do like those as well.
Oh, I do it so often. I always find these ones so hard because it changes every week. Is it the Rams? Is it the Rams or the Lions, or is it the Eagles? So, apologies to the listeners. I'm really skirting around the answer here. I'm going to go for the Bills, and they will play. I'm going to go for the gut. I'll go for the Rams.
The Rams and the Bills. I had put on a bet before the season that it would be the Rams Broncos. The Broncos haven't quite lived up to that expectation yet, but the Rams haven't have looked very good. As I already mentioned, loving Puka Nacua. Andy, it's been great chatting to you. I know over on X you're at Andy Davies Sport, but you have your own podcast as well across the pod. So and you have a different name on all of them. So I'll give you your moment just to make sure people know where they can find you and your podcast.
As you mentioned, Andy Davis Sport is my Twitter handle, and that is Davis with an E. And also my Instagram, my personal Instagram, which I do share some stuff on, is Andy R. Davis. And then my TikTok is Andy Talks NFL. I'm on the search for 10,000 followers. So if you want to give me a follow, then please do. Other than that, Across the Pod is on both Instagram and Twitter as across_the pod. And then if you like some vlogs of sports games, less regular than it once was, but we still do some vlogs at sports games, football mainly, or soccer for those who are American. Stats at Euro Trips on YouTube. And other than that, that is all the ones I've given. I think I've given all of them away. But give me a follow if you want to.
Yeah, and there's a nice sort of symmetry going on this week because later on I'm doing a recording with the HuddleUK's Cowboys writer, Paul Redman, to be a part of his podcast, Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. And I know he was a guest on your podcast this week, and you've been great to come on us. So nice all cyclical there. Andy, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for everyone who's listening to this episode of the HuddleUK podcast. I've been your host, Philip Marsh, as always. Please remember to go look at Andy's stuff, check out all of our stuff. Most social medias, you'll find us at Join the HuddleUK or over on YouTube, where it's just simply HuddleUK. Thank you for listening. Enjoy this week's action. Good luck to your teams, whoever they may be, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the HuddleUK podcast.